now that it's set up. The question is whether it's actually going to the right place.
I'm on it right now, so it looks like it's started now.
Oh, good.
It's
Okay.
up.
Up there it goes.
All right. Thank you, everybody. So for those who are joining on the live stream now, I apologize. I'm not sure where we were streaming to, but hopefully this is corrected and you'll be able to join us for the rest of the meeting. Maybe, yeah, so we'll continue from where we left off. We are doing our committee reports, and so I will turn it over to Mr. Cruson to give his committee report.
2 of them. It was a busy Wednesday last week. So Wednesday morning we had a policy meeting. We are continuing to work through our personnel policies, which is the 4000 series. Although a lot of the ones we have, a lot of the ones that we reviewed, probably we're not going to move forward with. There were a number there that were optional policies that just didn't make sense for various reasons, at least as far as being policies. But we do have a couple that we're continuing to work on from our list from Wednesday and look at, as well as one existing policy that we will be bringing to the board to rescind in the future. And tonight we have on the agenda 2 policies that we looked at a ways back in the 5000 series. So we're trying to work through our queue of policies that we need to bring forward to the board. And so that is it pretty much that was pretty much it for our policy meeting Wednesday morning. And then Wednesday afternoon, we had a communications committee meeting, a communications committee special meeting, so that we could finalize the newsletter, which is also before the board tonight. And it's our budget newsletter, so we're hoping to get that approved and out shortly so that it goes out in time for people to read it and digest it before the budget vote later in April. And that's it for my 2 reports.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else have committee reports? Actually, I should be asking if you have any questions of the committees as we go through these. Were there any questions on those reports so far? All right, sensing none. Ms. Lideline, do you have a?
Yes, Mr. DeLay, did you want me to give the CFF committee report?
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you don't mind, Ms. Lideline. Thank you.
That's fine, no problem. So the CFF CIP subcommittee met on March 11th, and let me just pull it up here. We talked about the municipal building committee, which is sort of forming right now and getting started on their meetings and looking at what their charge is going to be. And I believe that we'll have more information coming to the Board of Education as those meetings begin to take place. Mr. Gerbert talked about the Hadameadow Lightning Project and also the Reed Lighting and Boiler Project. I think that with the Hadameadow Lightning Project lighting project that we are looking at this taking place upcoming. It will take a couple months for it to be completed. And then also the Reed Lighting and Boiler Project, that those numbers are coming in very favorably. And so we're looking to move forward with that. We also had a discussion about the year-to-year maintenance needs. And Mr. Gerber talked about the fact that that there are some delayed projects that we need to discuss that should be brought to the forefront, and the potential for funding to be looked at for those projects, as some of the delayed maintenance has accumulated over time. And Ms. Fadis also presented the financial report, including the COVID expenses. And I know that she'll be talking to us later on this evening about what those numbers are looking like.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions, Mr. D'Elia?
I just wanted to thank Mrs. Zukowski and Mrs. Lideline for stepping in. I was called away, and I appreciate it very much that they made sure that the meeting continued on. So thank you, both of you. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Very good. You know, it occurs to me that the maintenance budget. So I just talked about in my report that the Board of Finance had taken out the entire maintenance budget in anticipation that that would be paid for with capital non-recurring funds. That creates that unlevel funding problem that we have, you know, what do we call it? Potholes or cliffs, where the funding, and it's going to be that much more difficult to justify a larger budget to make sure that projects are covered completely. And so I think, you know, it's just something to be aware of, I think. All right, any other questions or comments on our CFF report? All right, sensing none, are there any other reports? Mr. D'Elia?
I have some exciting news to report from Ed Advance. This has been going on for over a month, and I want to get this right, so I'm actually looking at it again. Ed Advance has gone into a collaborative venture with Cooperative Educational Services to purchase a building in Bethel called the Workspace. And this building is going to serve as a hub for all sorts of services, including STEM, professional learning opportunities, entrepreneurship, computer science, and computational thinking. It was a building that was set up for learning, and then with what's been happening lately, the owner decided to sell the building, so they stepped in and bought it to keep it going, and they're going to be able to provide us this wonderful service right down the road. It's going to be phenomenal, and I was just given the green light to share this with you because they were in negotiations yesterday. So it's a very exciting addition to Ed Advance, and maybe someday down the road when we can all go down together and check it out, because I think it'll become a wonderful resource for Newtown being so close by. It's phenomenal. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you. So is it like a maker space? It sounds a little bit like.
I'm going to ask Mr. Kitching if I can share the pictures, because the pictures really do it justice. It's got everything, and it's set up. It was built in 1997, which is relatively new, but then it was just renovated 5 years ago. And it's a 2-story barn, but on the inside, you would never know it's a barn, and it's already got all the equipment. If I could show you the pictures, you would be like, this is a brand new building with everything you can imagine. So, yeah, it is a makerspace, but it's also got something for everything. It's got a wood shop. It's got a complete workshop with all the tools for teaching woodworking, and it has drill presses. I mean, it's just incredible. So I'm going to see if I can share these pictures with the board, maybe for the next meeting. I did not ask permission for that, and I just want to make sure I'm not oversharing without them making their big announcement. But I did want to share that with you because it was really kind of a fun, I don't know if fun's the right word. For me, it was fun because I was part of the whole process from, behind the scenes, listening to everything. And, now it's actually happening. So it's exciting.
That's great. Thank you.
I don't know if I answered your question. Sorry, but that's the best I can do.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. Sensing none, or I don't know, were there liaison activities that anybody wanted to speak to other than, okay. So we'll move on to our student representative reports from the high school, and I will turn it over to Mr. Jerfy and Ms. Clore.
Good evening, board members. So we have been getting a lot of good news lately. Recently, we found out that all seniors who want to will be able to attend prom. Previously, the number of attendees was capped at 200, so this is really nice. Tickets for non-senior guests will be sold from April 26th to May 7th, and no non-NHS students will be allowed to attend. For clubs, there are some exciting new things coming up. The Nice Club, which is working with the Japan Society, will be conducting a virtual student exchange program where Newtown High students can interact with Japanese students online. For example, one of the things students are currently doing here at Newtown is they're making day in the life videos where they'll record and edit their daily life to show the students over in Japan. And so one of the things that makes this so exciting is that NHS is one of only 5 schools in the country doing this. And as we mentioned last meeting, students in several language classes have been taking the CELA biliteracy test, and some have finally finished. My Spanish class, for example, just finished taking all our tests, and it's been good news so far. All students who pass the 4 sections of the test will receive a seal on their diploma. And that's all for my report today.
I will continue. Rochelle and I actually just found out we passed today, so that was pretty exciting. But I'll start by talking about sports. So winter sports are coming to a close in the next week or so. The last games, meets, contests are taking place this week, and SWCs are starting this week and next. So the girls basketball team actually has their first round of SWCs tonight at home versus Weston, and then boys basketball had their first SWC game last night at home versus New Milford, and they won, so they will be proceeding to quarterfinals on Thursday. So March 27th will mark the end of winter sports, but also the same day as the beginning of spring sports. And you can definitely tell around the school that students are getting excited. I hear them talking about the conditioning and captain's practices, and especially since we got a burst of warm weather last week, everyone got outside and started practicing. It was nice to see everyone back around campus on the tennis courts and the fields, just getting ready for spring sports. Definitely a lot more exciting compared to the outcome from last year's spring season. Unified Basketball had their first home basketball game last Friday with Brookfield. Since fans aren't necessarily allowed this year, other than the athletes' parents, they had a fundraiser for cardboard cutouts. So they raised money and printed pictures on cardboard cutouts and put them in the stands. So we got to see some familiar faces and family and some pets even on the stands, which was very exciting and something different. Their season also ends this week, but this will just continue to start their spring season, which is track and field. A little more on clubs. So as always, the meetings are shorter if they're in person or they're just being held virtual. The debate team is still having debates, but they're all virtual this year. Instead of going to local colleges or universities and meeting with a bunch of other schools, they have these large virtual debates, which seem to be going well from the people in the debate club. And the Newtown Science Bowl team had their regional competition last Saturday, and they placed second in regionals. So that was great news for them. And then at the high school's annual day of silence for students is being held next month, April 23rd. And signups are taking place now, though, until March 31st, which students should know about. And if they're interested in participating, should contact one of the English teachers about participating in the event. Other events going around school these next 2 weeks. This week is conferences for all schools, but So for students, that means a 3-hour early dismissal on Thursday. And to account, middle school and Reed and the elementary schools have conferences on Thursday and Friday. So there's modified schedules both days this week. And then next Wednesday is SAT day for the juniors at the high school. So it's very exciting. They still have the opportunity to take it this year, but the students have to be spread out with less students in each classroom. So that concludes to more teacher proctors. So all of the other students will just have no in-person or online classes that day, but they'll be assigned work from all the classes they would have had in the morning, and then they'll just have to finish it by 2:30 in the afternoon to count for their attendance for the day. So a little bit of a relaxing day for them, but still school. So as I said about the warm weather, it definitely got us hopeful for some of the events in the future and to start utilizing the outdoor spaces we have this year, especially the senior courtyard for the seniors, and getting our hopes there for some of the events to come, like prom and the senior trip, and definitely, of course, graduation, which we're all very hopeful about. And we know all of the events are in the works as we get updated usually on Fridays, and we can continue, Rochelle and I can continue to update you guys on them. And so we're definitely staying hopeful and just hoping for the best and a positive trend. That completes my report for this week, but if you have any questions or anything you'd like me to report on in the future, I'd be happy to do so. But thank you.
Great, thank you. Do you have any questions or comments from board members?
I have a question.
Mr. Voros.
Jillian.
Yeah.
We make sure that we get a copy of capstone presentations in advance.
Yes, I will do. I'm in my capstone class right now, so I will know as soon as my teacher just sent out the original sign-up sheet for us, so I'll know as soon as the start dates are.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
All right, so we'll have those for board members to attend if interested a little bit later in the semester. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you so much. Again, you're welcome to stick around and join in the conversation. And if not, we hope you have a good evening. Thank you for your update. And we will move on to our financial report, and I'll entertain a motion on that.
I move that the Board of Education approve the financial report and transfers for the month ending February 28, 2021.
Second.
All right, so Mr. D'Elia makes the motion, Mr. Kusan seconds the motion. And we will turn it over to Ms. Vadas for the details.
Hey, thank you, Dr. Koo. Good evening, everybody. So tonight I'd like to present more of a high-level view. I know there's a lot of information in your financial report in the packet this month. So if you don't mind, Dr. Koo, could you share the screen?
You're going to share your screen?
Yes, I am. I can.
Is it working?
This takes me a couple of minutes here.
Oh, yeah, it should.
Why?
There we go.
Okay, are you saying?
Yeah.
I can't really see anybody, so. Okay, so if you have any questions or you need me to pause, just speak out. All right, so tonight I'll be presenting the 8th report of the 2021 school year as we continue to provide year-to-date expenses, transfers, and encumbrances. And for those accounts without encumbrances, we have included projections which can be found in the anticipated obligations column. During the month of February, the Board of Education spent approximately $4.5 million, $4 million on salaries, and approximately $1.5 million on all other objects. So the overall position remains negative this month as we've incurred an additional $33,364 in costs which further decreases our balance to a negative $87,423. The major contributors of this decrease can be found in salaries, incurring an additional cost of $99,987, and in benefits, purchase property services, and property, we saw a combined expense of about $20,000. Offsets to these expenses can be found in other purchase services, with an increase to the balance by $44,757, and supplies with an increase of $40,762. So now I'd like to highlight some of the major movers for the month of February. So as I mentioned, in the salary accounts, we saw a decrease of just under $100,000. And this is primarily due to a decrease in certified salaries of $42,506. And this is as a result of an in-depth analysis and a realignment of our encumbrances for teachers. And also we included our long and short-term substitutes. In non-certified, the majority change can be found in special education service salaries, as we reallocated a portion of the excess cost grant. And we also filled an open behavioral therapist position. However, I was just made aware that we will be filling another vacancy this month, which will further reduce that balance in the next financial update. We also incurred heavy costs in custodial maintenance overtime this month due to the numerous snowstorms. And the total decrease in non-certified salaries accounts for just over $57,000, bringing our new total balance to a negative $243,134. In other purchase services, we had an increase to the overall balance by approximately $45,000. Now, the major movers under this object can be found in transportation, with an increase to the balance of $56,866. And this is because we were able to release some of our anticipated obligations based on projected needs for the balance of the year. In the out-of-district tuition, we anticipate an additional $63,395 in excess cost grant revenue, which is slightly less than what was reported last month. And we also made a few changes to encumbrances, which have attributed to an overall increase of slightly over $89,000. And as a note, during the month of March, we will be reconciling this account. Therefore, we may see some fluctuations next month with the next financial update. Under contracted services, we have a decrease of $75,632, with the majority of this coming from the lunch program. And as you are aware, this account has been very difficult to predict due to the ever-changing school schedule. However, now that we have a few months of consistency under our belts, we have included an estimate that we feel more confident with. And I know this is a very hard number to accept. However, we have been predicting a very large deficit for quite a few months now. So while this may be alarming, I think it's not at all surprising. And in insurance, we've included $20,740 for the anticipation of a new cyber liability policy, which I believe we'll be talking about a little bit later. All of these changes have brought our new balance in other purchase services to $235,575. So I just thought it would be good for you to see this diagram, and these are the changes that we've been faced with in our lunch program. This diagram compares the year-to-date profit and loss by month for both last year and the current year. So the top red line represents 1920 profit and loss by month, with the average loss at just over $5,000 per month and the year-to-date loss at $30,000. You can see the blue line is representing the current year, and this shows a total average loss of almost $44,000 per month, with a year-to-date total of just over $320,000. So while we are not near the break-even point yet in the current year, you can see that the losses are not as severe as they were during the beginning of the year. And I can definitely assure you that Whitson's is doing everything that they can to mitigate these losses by providing easy access for lunches for the middle and high school and offering a variety of choices. So moving on to supplies, we saw an overall increase to our balance of just over $40,000. And this increase is mostly attributed to the savings that we've incurred through the virtual net metering program. I know I've been reporting these savings for quite some time now, but this balance has grown substantially over the past few months, totaling over $350,000, which has greatly assisted us in maintaining a positive balance in this area. The new balance on our supply account is now at $165,129. So financial summary. For the month of February, we did not incur any emergency repairs. However, we did incur a total of $37,000 in general building repairs. Just to reiterate, we've incurred an additional $33,364, bringing our new estimated balance to a negative $87,423. And we've received 75% of our excess cost grant revenue, with the balance expected in May, along with some local tuition and interest. And that concludes my financial summary. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, can we
take it down?
Yeah, let's take down the share screen. And then we can see who has any questions. Are there any questions? Mr. D'Elia?
Tanya, I want to make sure I understand this. We're expecting an $87,000 overall budget deficit this year?
That's the current estimate, Dan, and you know, it's still early. We have some encumbrances that we have to go through in the special education department. We still have some open positions, which I have accounted for most of them. But that is the projection right now as of February, but it is still early.
May I continue?
Yes, Mr. D'Elia.
Tanya, I'm sorry I wasn't at the last meeting, the CFF meeting, but have people been able to purchase what they needed, so what they originally budgeted for? You know, because I know we had to spend, the other expenses came up, and I just I'm just wondering if you could speak to that point.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, in my anticipated obligation columns, I have accounted for a full spend in office supplies, instructional supplies, printing, most of the school needs, and I have been working with the administrators. They've been giving me a lot of input on what they will spend for the balance of the year, so I've included those numbers as well. So, you know, in essence, nobody's been cut short.
Yeah, I guess that's where I was going. I just want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the teachers so they can serve the students, and
absolutely,
it sounds like we're still in good shape in that, on that road.
Yep.
Thank you. And the presentation is wonderful, by the way. I know, excuse me, Dr. Koo, I didn't mean to. Your presentations are wonderful. They're easy to follow, and I appreciate them very much. Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. It's still kind of, you know, trial and error here, but
well,
trying to make it a little bit, you know, a little quicker, and you have a lot of information in the report, so I figured this could be more of a, you know, high level.
I think it's a tremendous success, and I appreciate it. Thank you for spending the time to put it together in a format that's easy to follow.
Thank you.
All right, any other board member questions or comments? So I have a couple of questions. One, so there are transfers that we need to approve. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to.
Oh, you do have a copy. I think you have a copy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure because it is in the end of the financial report. So I just wanted to bring everybody's attention to that. And then the other question is, will we be, and maybe this isn't for you, this is really an administrative question for Dr. Rodrigue or maybe Dr. Longabuco or Mr. Einhorn, in that the lunch schedule is dependent on, so the students are not able to eat lunch at school because there isn't enough space. But once the weather starts looking up, will we be able to return to a schedule that would allow them to eat lunch at school? So putting the tents back up, or?
You want me to jump in, Dr. Rodrigue?
Yep. I don't see anything changing. I can probably answer that we're going to continue this throughout the year because it still is an issue with the number of students and the waves and the entire schedule. Kim, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think, the tents are certainly helpful, but the real issue is that students need to be sitting 6 feet with their masks off, and we can't feasibly do 6 feet in our cafeteria space without adding another lunch wave, which would mean 4 lunch waves and kind of really adjust the schedule in order to make that work. Even with the tents put up only seat about 24 students in each tent for additional space. So while they're great and they take off a little bit of the pressure, it's definitely not enough to be able to do that. We're also in better news, we have a lot of our students back and our remote number is significantly less. And so our population is actually higher than it's been in quite a while, which is a good problem, but not great for feeding children.
And I can tell you also, just to add to that, Dr. Koo, that was a question that came up by many of the superintendents just yesterday on the DPH regarding, are they going to look at, the 3 to 6 feet again? And there was actually a study that just came out of Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. It's the only one right now. And it does show there's very little significantly different outcomes between the 3 and 6 feet. However, they're not looking anytime soon to change that. So if we really comply as we should, it really just puts pressure on the schools to try to get that done, and they just can't. So in fact, I've said to parents, it doesn't look like we're going to change for at least this year.
Okay, I'm sorry. I know that was a question out of left field because it doesn't seem to have much to do with a financial report, but it did in the sense that
the lunch,
the amount that we're anticipating the lunches to cost, and that's that was why I asked that. I'm sorry. All right. So, are there any other questions, Ms. Lideline?
Yeah, I wanted to just ask Ms. Bettis and Dr. Rodrigue. I know in the past that when we've been in situations where there's been an anticipated overage in the budget, that administration has looked at potentially making some changes to spending in response to that. And I just wondered how much we are feeling secure that the overage will be made up between now and the end of the year? And has there been any discussion with regard to expenditures going forward in anticipation of unexpected or things changing?
That's a good question. Actually, Tanya and I are going to sit down before we send a report to the Board of Finance, because I know they did ask for a better picture of what the end of the year will look like. Up until now, and I know you've asked this question before in terms of what we call a freeze on the budget and spending, we've tried not to do that this year, simply for the reason that Mr. Dalia just asked. We did not want to really, hurt any of the instruction. We were in hybrid, now we're in full. We really wanted teachers to feel like they had what they needed all throughout the year. That doesn't mean that we can't look at some areas we feel that could make up the difference before the end of the year. And we're certainly going to look at that. But right now we have not asked anyone not to spend what they need. Mm-hmm. So as we get closer to April 1st, we'll probably have a better picture of what we can do to mitigate that difference.
Yeah, can I just add that the principals have been including what they do need. So just on the other side of that, I think they're being very responsible, and we're having communications and discussing the budget regularly. So, they know what's going on in their budgets.
And likewise, the Board of Finance has asked specifically that we come back and let them know if we are, they are aware of the pressures that we're feeling. And the fact that that non-lapsing account was not used last year. So I think there is some awareness that there needs to be some flexibility. But so, and they, as Dr. Rodriguez indicated, they did ask for a financial update in April, so that'll be coming. Mr. Delia, did you have a comment on this?
Yeah, I was just going to piggyback on what you and Mrs. Lideline said. And is this something, Tanya, that we can ask the Legislative Council to, because it's clearly COVID related, this deficit? Is this something that we could, I know that that was something we discussed with when we were originally discussing the non-lapsing.
Yeah, exactly. When we get to the point when we feel there's a need, we will definitely go back to the Board of Finance. I'm not sure of the exact process, but I believe we start with the Board of Finance to request additional funds to cover these costs.
Thank you.
And keep in mind, we still do have ESSER funds. So that where that plays a role has to be recognized as well. We only identified a certain amount for next year. So we're looking at, you know, some of that can be utilized as well. If we're only talking 87,000 or something like that, that is a possibility as well. And there's more to come. So.
Yeah, that was my next question is, are there any, and I of course had a feeling that there was additional funding that was coming and just wanted a better understanding of how that would even out what we were looking at with regard to a deficit.
Yes, there's definitely funds and more to come. I don't want to, it's not solidified yet, but we are expecting even more than we had last time. So that could certainly offset that expense.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments on the financial report before we vote on it? All right, all those in favor? Aye. And
Aye.
And any opposed? None, so that passes unanimously. And that will bring us to our presentation. So Ms. Marks is here to bring us the curricula that we're looking at this evening. Our first read on humanities curriculum and writing through film. So I will turn it over to you, Mrs. Marks.
Thank you very much. And I believe Dr. Longabuco is going to present my screen or present her screen. I have to confess, I have not done as many Zoom calls as Google Meet calls, so everything looks a little bit different for me tonight. Thank you very much for having me back. And you'll see that this is dated February 22nd, which was when I presented it to Dr. Koo and Mr. Voros at the CNI subcommittee. But I'm happy to be here sharing with you all the updates to our humanities and writing through film curriculum documents that were done last summer. So I was going to start with humanities. Humanities is a unique course at the high school, really, in that it is cross-listed as both an English and a fine arts course. So it's a semester-long course that is co-taught by an English teacher and a fine arts teacher. For many years, that has been an English teacher and a visual arts teacher. However, we had a lot of expanded interest over the last 2 years that has allowed us to expand that and actually diversify the course a little bit. Both last year and this year, we were able to run 3 semester-long sections. And with that, we were able to expand our staffing and bring in Chris Lee, who is one of our music theory, music tech teachers, who is just really amazing and was a great addition to this team. And he and Brian Tenney joined together to teach a section of the course that is focused on music and audio in terms of arts. So when this team, Ellie Hanna, who is an English teacher, and Carol Skolas, who is a veteran art teacher, they had taught it together for a while. So when they came together this summer with Mr. Lee and Mr. Tenney, they really were a really dynamic team to envision a truly concept-based humanities course that could be taught with a focus on a different genre of arts. So the goals of these revisions were to create, like I said, truly concept-based units that would allow for a focus on visual art or music or the audio arts, if you will, while still addressing the same concepts, the same types of formative and summative assessments. They consolidated it into 2 units, really one unit that spans each quarter of the semester, and that ensures when you look at the skills that are listed in this document, you'll see core standards in reading, writing, speaking, listening, and national art standards all in one course. So the first unit that spans the first quarter is focused on identity. Students learn particularly artistic vocabulary so that they can learn to apply it to the analysis of others' artwork or audio work, music, as well as their own. So they examine the techniques that artists use, the wording that they use to describe it when they analyze it, and also learn to understand that process, the revision process that artists go through as they develop a work. They also explore the idea of how artists use their art to understand themselves better, hence the focus on identity. Students, as well as reading autobiographical works and studying artists and their biographies, students write a series of autobiographical vignettes and create a self-portrait, either visually or through music, perhaps through an original musical composition or a curated collection of music that reflects their identity. And some of these images that you'll see are from students this past fall. This were some of their original identity compositions. I wanted to mention as well, this unit lends itself very well to, in the fall semester, the incorporation of the college essay, which I know is always an important part of our seniors' experience. So when students happen to have this course in the fall semester, that would happen in the early stages of those first weeks of school within this unit. In the second major unit that encompasses the second quarter, students use the lens of expression to explore how artists both reflect and shape the cultural and societal forces in which they create their work. Students study examples of expressionist literature, art, and music, and then use the arts to convey a message of their own. So the example that you see here was a student using some of the techniques that they had learned that expressionists use to convey their own message. And then if you take a look at the next slide, you'll see what some of our students did this in the culminating project for this second unit, and really for the course. Students have the ability to synthesize their understanding of art and literature. So what the students have done is create an original work of art that reflects a book that they read about a social issue, but they created that work of art in the style of an expressionist artist that they studied. So on the left, you see student artwork that was inspired by the book Educated by Tara Westover, and then work by the artist Paul Klee. You can see the inspirational work there on the left. And then in the bottom, or sorry, on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see student artwork that was inspired by the book Silent Spring by Rachel Carson, which has an environmental call to action. And the student took the concepts, the visual concepts in the artwork by Tomas Saraceno to apply them to this original artwork that reflected the messages of this text. So we're really excited for this spring semester that the course that we have a section running right now with Ellie Hanna and Carol Scholas focused on the visual art, but Brian Tenney and Chris Lee are teaching their audio course, or their audio focus course, this semester as well. So I should be able to share more by the end of the semester in terms of what that really looks like. And unfortunately, when it ran for the first time last spring, obviously the situation that we ended up in with being fully asynchronous, prevented some of the exciting things that they were hoping to do. But I know that they're really looking forward to working with those students this semester. We were able to honor students' preferences in terms of the focus that they wanted. And I think we've really opened up a course to a whole new group of students. And really, like I said, an exciting and unique course for both the fine arts and the English department. So the next course that I'm presenting tonight that was worked on last summer is Writing Through Film, another senior semester elective. It happens to be one of our most popular. We run 6 or more sections a year. We had about 125 students enrolled in the course this year, which is almost a quarter of our seniors. It's easy to understand why students might be excited about studying a course that's all about movies, but they quickly find that there is a lot of scholarship to be applied in this class, and they really often walk away telling their teachers that they can never watch a movie in the same way again. So Jacob Thomas and Rick Lai were the 2 teachers that worked on this curriculum this summer, and their goals were to revise some of the existing units into concept-based format and consolidate them so they would ultimately be able to preserve some of the flexibility for teachers to use different films as text depending on the students that are in front of them. So it allows the teachers to teach the same concepts while catering to the needs of their particular students. This course also includes the unit on the college essay as the first unit, because it doesn't naturally fall into this curriculum the way that it does into humanities, where identity is already the lens for that first unit. When this course runs in the fall semester, the teachers focus that first couple of weeks on the college essay using the unit that has been incorporated into many of our senior electives. And then when they jump into the first real language of film unit, much like in humanities where they're focusing on the artistic vocabulary, in this course, they're really focusing on the vocabulary of film technique. So camera shots, angles, lighting, mise en scène. They do a really in-depth study of all of the tools that filmmakers use to create these incredible movies. Towards the end of this unit, after they've studied a variety of different classic films, they would conduct close reading of scenes from classic films, like I said, like The Godfather, Jaws, Psycho, or The Graduate, to unpack all the choices that make these memorable movie scenes great. So their summative assessment is actually analyzing a particular montage in one of these films to really break it apart and unpack it the same way we would a quote or a passage of a work of literature. In the next unit, the focus is using the lens of change to examine how film genres have evolved over time. So students look at a variety of films across a single genre. And again, they might look at a couple of genres over the course of the unit. Some of the examples here: comedy, science fiction, documentary, Westerns, and analyze how and why tropes within these films have been manipulated in different ways over time. So looking at a Western that was made in the 1960s, for example, compared to a Western film that was made in the early 2000s, you're going to see some callbacks to the older films in different kinds of ways, and some manipulation of these same tropes. So at the end of that unit, students would write a genre essay that analyzes tropes across at least 2 films within the same genre. And finally, in the last unit, again, much like how humanities focuses on the role of art in society to make change, this unit called Film and Society uses the lens of perspective to look at how films function in our society, to question the responsibility of a filmmaker to comment on social issues. There's no shortage of films out there that address prominent social issues. And in looking at the context, the effectiveness of these kinds of films, students really consider how media and movies can be used as an argument. So I'm sure you can see from, again, even just the few film posters that I put in the presentation, why students find this to be such an engaging course, and but I would also echo that it's the academic rigor of the course that really has made it continue to be such a popular course with our students. I appreciate your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about either course at this time.
Very good, thank you. Do we have any board member questions or comments? Nope, everybody's overwhelmed. It is truly, no, it is, I mean, you really cover it so well. It, you know, I appreciate.
Thank you.
How well you do that, and the enthusiasm you bring to the courses that you present to us.
I wish I could teach all of them.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I hear about them through my own kids, so I can appreciate all that you're sharing with us. All right, so thank you for. Oh, I see, Mr. Delia.
I have a question about the writing through film course, and I guess it's kind of a, I don't know, I'm just curious. Everybody sees films differently. Films are all about perception, and I'm wondering how you can assess writing, and I don't know if this is, it's just something that I've been thinking about as you were presenting. You know, someone might see The Godfather from one point of view, and someone might see The Godfather from a different point of view. How do you set up a rubric, or how do you grade that, you know, when everybody sees a movie through a different lens?
I think a lot of it, and you're not wrong there, and I think some of it is also studying the, you know, why different films have been responded to in different ways over time. But some of it is also really having them focus on those techniques. You know, if you're going to read The Godfather in this particular way, what is it in the film that you're looking at to support that? One of the really popular actual myths, I guess, is that, you know, for a long time people were saying that in The Godfather, for example, citrus fruit comes up every time somebody is going to die. And the director has actually come out and said it was just a coincidence that there happened to be oranges in that one particular scene, and this, you know, that it wasn't actually something that was intended. So we actually look at that with the students and say, you know, does it matter that the filmmaker didn't intend for that to be this foreshadowing motif, or can we actually look at it as a viewer and say, well, we noticed this pattern and it makes this connection for us. So I think a lot of it, going back to your question, is just trying to make sure that they, like they would in a text, support it with analysis of concrete evidence from the film. But it can be challenging.
Yeah, it sounds like it's probably an interesting class to teach, because every essay is probably different, and you probably every year or every semester you probably learn something new about a movie that
Absolutely.
you've been watching for a long time.
And it's fun to see what the students bring to films that, you know, we might have watched at a particular time in our lives that, you know, they're encountering for the first time. It's always interesting to see what their reactions are.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anybody else have questions? All right, sensing none, we will move on. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
being with us this evening. And as always, we'll pass on any questions that come through between now and the next meeting for our approval. But thank you. All right, so that brings us to our second read on several curricula, and I'll entertain motions on those.
Do you want me to do one motion for each and talk about each one? Or do you want me to combine them?
I guess let's throw it out there and see if there are any board members who would like us to separate. It'll be like a consent agenda. Can we do a combined motion with all these, or would anybody like to remove one for discussion?
I think they should be combined.
Okay, so let's go ahead and do it that way, Mr. Delia.
I move that the Board of Education approve the grade 1 reading curriculum, the grade 1 writing curriculum, the grade 2 reading curriculum, and the grade 2 writing curriculum.
Second.
All right, so Mr. D'Elia makes the motion, Mr. Kusan seconds the motion. Were there any questions or comments before we vote? Sensing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, and any opposed? None. All right, so that passes unanimously. And that was a great suggestion, Mr. D'Elia. Thank you. All right, so that'll bring us to our COVID update. Dr. Rodrigue, do we have any updates?
It really hasn't changed since the last update, but we are, again, moving to a better place. We're still at a 2% positivity rate, and you can see that we post the advanced reports, as I said, every week. So that just came in today, as a matter of fact. So again, we're out of the red. We, just so you know, we've had the 2 successful vaccine clinics that have brought nearly 700 vaccines to our staff, and that's the first dose, of course. The second clinic was just this past Saturday, where they vaccinated just over 100 more staff. So this is really the game changer, I think, and the confidence level of our staff just, increases day by day. And this certainly has a significant influence on the climate of the district. So we are, again, in such a good place. While we still need to comply with standard quarantine guidelines, the DPH did remind everyone just the other day that once a staff member, or anyone for that matter, is vaccinated, and that means fully vaccinated, after 2 weeks following that vaccination, he or she will not have to quarantine if they do come in contact with a positive COVID case. So again, we're moving in the right direction. Staff feel far more confident now. And I think as I said, our goal is, as we move into April, to have most of our entire staff fully vaccinated. So. And that's the end of my report.
Very good. Anybody have any questions or comments? Yeah, Mr. Cruson?
I want to circle back on what Dr. Koo brought up during the budget, the lunch issue, I guess, for lack of a better term. Is there consideration being given to what we might do next year if we still have to deal with this, as opposed to continuing on track the way we are? Maybe alternatives we might visit, or how we might handle lunch differently to try and get back to a full in-person school schedule?
Yeah, that's a very good question. As I said, we don't have any guidelines yet. I assume within the next month or so, we'll know a little bit more about what the state is going to have us comply with in terms of guidelines, and how that will change from now. I honestly think the more and more staff that are vaccinated and looking at the positivity rates declining, it will look very different next year. Again, mitigation strategies and things like that could remain the same. But again, I think it's going to look differently with lunch to some degree. And again, I can't really answer in any definitive way until we hear from the state. That did come up just yesterday with the DPH, but they're just not ready to give us any real definitive answers yet. Again, it has to be, can we do 3 feet? Can we, that's what most of the superintendents were asking. Because that really is a game changer if they change those guidelines.
Okay. Yeah. I anticipate, without the ability to vaccinate as of right now, since they're just starting trials and getting into trialing it on under 16. With students not necessarily being able to get vaccinated long before September, if at all before September, I would like to know that we're looking into options to try and keep the school day intact instead of continuing the current practice, which, I mean, at this point, I've kind of accepted that the current practice will continue through the end of this school year, but
It will, but just like we've done all year since last March, we're looking at a variety of options whenever we can, but we still have to comply with whatever the state guidelines are. So again, until I hear those definitively, it's really hard to answer at this point, but certainly with my leadership team, we'll look at all options and what we can do. We really don't want next year to look like this year, if we can help it. So that is, I've already told the teachers if there's a cohort D, or if the state asks us to, leave the cohort D as a flexibility for parents, I can tell you it's not going to look the same as it does now.
okay. I'll keep harping on it, I'm sure, but thank you for now.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. I think it is going to remain challenging even next year, because there will be students who will still have to quarantine for that long period of time if they're not vaccinated. And there will always be the question of who's vaccinated and who isn't vaccinated. And I'm I'm looking forward to hearing the DPHs where they land on all of these things. All right, are there any other questions or comments? All right, sensing none, we will move on to our first read of policies. So, Mr. Cruson, do you want to give us some background on these?
Yeah, and I apologize in advance. Probably going to be leaning a bit hard on Mr. Pompano here, because it's been a while since we went through these. So I will do my best with what I remember. So the first policy, which is 5145.11, police in schools, questioning and apprehension. This is a policy that we originally got from CABE. Mr. Pompano read through it and brought actually through a few rounds, we made edits and tweaks to it so that it more closely matched how the school handles these types of situations. In red, you can see some of the clarifications and the grammatical type of changes that we made to it. For the most part, we left it, as I said, for the most part, we leaned on what Mr. Pompano told us was appropriate for this, and we definitely were guided by his expertise in this. And do you have anything you'd like to add, Mr. Pompano?
Yeah, I just also would like to say that Lieutenant Robinson from the police department worked with me on these to make sure the police department policy and procedures matched what we were going to do here with the Board of Ed. So we feel it's a very fair document, and one that's very workable.
So I will open the floor on that one.
Okay. How about we go with Mr. D'Elia and then Ms. Zukowski?
I guess I can submit this, but I just wanted to offer a suggestion to number 2, Mr. Cruson, and that is, it says an attempt will be made to notify students' parents. Could it say prior to the student being interviewed? Because this says when a student is interviewed, and then it does say, so they may be present during questioning, but I just thought that's just a suggestion.
I mean, I'll definitely take that back to the committee. I know we had some discussions around this, and there is always the problem of how much notice does the school even have. So I don't know how much prior notification can be made, but it's something that I can take back to the committee for discussion.
Thank you.
Ms. Zukowski? Oh, you need to unmute yourself. Okay, so I'm going to stay with number 2. I have several questions. So the last sentence of question number 2 says the school principal or her designee will be present. But in the regulations, it says in the absence of a student's parent, guardian, or representative during any questioning of such students, the principal or designated certified school staff person shall be present as may be allowed by law. So that suggests that if the parents are there, then there needn't be a school representative, but number 2 makes it sound like there will always be a school representative. So I just wanted to point that out. I'm not sure which way it should really go. And I have a couple of other questions, just context questions.
Okay.
But I'll wait.
I did mean to mention early on, we're focused on the policy because the regulation isn't what the board is approving. But as far as the regulation goes, it's good to get that out there for Mr. Pompano and Dr. Rodrigue to be aware of, so that they can look at that. Because if they feel the regulation needs to be amended to match the policy, they can make that change on their own. But we can also see if they want the policy changed to match. So I'm just making a quick note.
So I'll wait for others to weigh in with what they want. I have a few more questions. Let me know when I can go.
Oh, so were there any other board members who had questions or comments? So why don't you continue, Ms. Zukowski?
Okay, I'll continue, and if you want to just interrupt me to let others speak, I don't mean to monopolize at any time. So school resource officers, are they technically police officers? And if so, would this apply to them as well?
Dr. Koo, do you mind if I answer that?
Oh, yes, please, Mr. Pompano.
Yes, SROs are sworn police officers with arrest powers. They're Newtown police officers. Being SROs and being specifically trained to be an SRO, they have additional powers where they can work under the guidance of a school administrator, where a police officer without SRO training could not. So specifically, yes, they are police officers sworn with powers of arrest.
Whereas school security officers are not any longer police officers if they once were.
Correct. Armed school security officers are retired.
I'm sorry?
Yes, armed school security officers are retired police officers. They have no police powers. They have no powers of arrest. They are not SROs.
So then would it make sense to call out that this policy applies to SROs as well as police officers working through the police department, to just make sure people understand that? That would be a question.
I think we could do that.
Okay, I have a couple more. So in general, people have the right not to choose to submit to questioning. And the district, the regulation, again, makes it clear that a parent or guardian must be present for those under 16. It makes it clear that 18-year-olds can speak for themselves as they have reached the age of maturity. And then it leaves 16 and 17-year-olds sort of in limbo, in that it's whatever the police department's policies are. As a school district, are we, as a school board, I should say, is that something that we agree with? We could also say that up to under 18-year-old cannot be questioned unless a parent or guardian is present. If we don't do that, it could give the impression that it is a school that's deciding whether or not the student must submit to questioning. And I'm not sure how we as a district feel about that.
Again, since that one is in the regulation, that would be up to the discretion of Dr. Rodrigue or Mr. Pompano to decide on or to address, because they're the ones, as a board, we're approving what's in the policy, and they're the ones that handle the administrative regulation.
Right. So then as a board member, I would request that we consider saying that those under 18 must have a parent or guardian to basically provide the rights of this particular student. And so I would say we might consider adding or expanding that to the policy. I'm a little concerned, under 16s are good. They have somebody speaking for them. 18 and older, they can speak for themselves. But it seems like 16 and 17, the school and or the police department are the ones speaking for them. And that concerns me.
If you'd like to see a change in the policy, please feel free to send us some wording to discuss at our next meeting, and we can discuss in addition to the policy itself, if I think that's what you're requesting. Am I correct? Yeah.
But
so,
it's just something it's my feeling. It's not necessarily the board wide. I just wanted to call that out. It's somewhat concerning to me.
So we can look at the regs versus the policy for sure. But I can tell you, and I'm sure Kim can speak to this as well, there are certain circumstances where we don't necessarily have to wait for a parent. And in those circumstances where there's an emergency or something that is criminal in nature and impacts other students or staff, or the safety of other students or staff, that's a whole situation. So we have to be careful on what we put in our policy that actually doesn't, it actually extends the law beyond that. And we have the authority and the rights to do certain things in a school building. So just know that we look at that carefully and we want to be fair, but there have been cases where we can't notify a parent necessarily in advance.
Understood.
And Mr. D'Elia, did you have a comment on that specific point?
I agree with Mrs. Zukowski. I just want to make sure that we're really dotting our I's and crossing our T's on this, because as a parent of a 17-year-old, if my son needed to be questioned, I would want to be there. So I appreciate that being brought up, but I just want to hear, maybe we can just dig a little deeper and just maybe be a little more informed.
You're both, I think, asking that we consider putting the wording in there, but if we come back with a specific reason why it can't be or shouldn't be,
yeah,
and can explain that would be, you just want us to do the due diligence.
Yes. Oh, yes, please. Thank you very much.
Yes.
And that's what I was saying. We can definitely, as a committee, look into that, preferably with some suggested wording as to what it might say, but we can look further into it.
And okay. I would back up both of that particular request. I similarly feel the same way, but I also recognize that, a 16 and 17-year-old is driving around the parking lot in the high school, and there are accidents that happen at the high school in the parking lot, and that's just another consideration to take into account. Mr. D'Elia?
Yeah, if there's an issue of safety, absolutely, and that's what and I appreciate Dr. Rodriguez bringing that up. So it's tough. That's a very tough situation, but I just appreciate Mr. Cruz, I appreciate you discussing it in further depth. Thank you.
Almost done. Okay, so the last paragraph that starts in order to promote school security, do we as a board want the police to actually notify our building principals prior to the walkthrough, or is this as written saying they can show up and do a walkthrough whenever they want to? So I'm just curious about that. Do we have an expectation that walkthroughs at least the principal will be notified?
Yes, there is an expectation. So I want to bring that back because it does not highlight that. You're right.
And then my normal harping, I say this over and over again. Should the Board of Ed be notified when police are used as part of these procedures? Should we be made aware of that? Should we add something to the policy, like the sexual harassment policy, that makes us aware of these events? That would be a question that I would wish I would ask the policy members to consider. I know from what I can see that there are filings that have to be done with the state. So it seems like it's something that maybe the Board of Ed should be made aware of in some form.
Much like with the sexual harassment cases or the racism, cases of racism or that kind of stuff, it's difficult as board members for us to know certain details and what we can know and what we can't know, because it could result in a case where it's brought before us for judgment and we need to be able to enter with a minimal amount of knowledge. So we can have the discussion, but I think much like with those policies, it's difficult to codify in the policy that we will be informed, because it could open up a can of worms that could get us or administration in trouble.
Or maybe we could just borrow the language, because the language talks about a summary, so that we don't necessarily know particular events, but we know how often, or if it's the issue is growing or abating. If I can add that to my suggestions, and then and any discussion you have would be very good for us to hear. Now I have just an administrative question.
Wait, before you go on, Mr. Delia, did you have something you wanted to add?
I just want us to be careful in knowing too much as a board when things do come to us. There could be an expulsion hearing that we're sitting at, and then all of a sudden, if we already know stuff, I don't think we will not be able to properly sit in an expulsion hearing. Or if somebody comes to us, grieving something, if we are over-informed, we will not be able, a very clear argument can be made that we cannot impartially hear everything because we're hearing it a second time. And I just want to be careful when if we overload a policy, that it ends up becoming not serving the board, nor the community, nor the students properly.
So can I just ask Ms. Zukowski, are you look at the purpose of the board being informed? Is this for long-term monitoring, or are you talking about you want to know when an event happens?
Long-term monitoring. I think we should know about the trends year over year. So maybe just an end of year summary might be all that's interesting, or an every 3-year summary.
I would be curious, are other board members also wanting that, Mr. Delia?
Yeah, I guess I misread what Mrs. Zukowski was asking for, so thank you. Yeah, that would be an interesting data point, as long as it's a very generic data point that we can use in making decisions that help us serve the community better.
I'm as a board member not sure how much value it can necessarily have, depending on what information we can be given as part of it, but that's a larger discussion that has to be had with Dr. Rodriguez and Mr. Pompano to know what we can even be told. Just knowing, there were 20 arrests in the last year, that doesn't really tell much as a data point. So, but I have no problem digging a little more into it and seeing if something useful could come of it.
Thank you.
I see it similarly to sharing at the end of the year, as you said, Mr. Cruson, the summary of incidents, racial incidents. We said we were going to talk about discipline. We do send a lot of that data to the state, so I could see that being shared. But I think if you go beyond that, you can't help but get more specific, which then lends itself to knowing too much if there are expulsions or anything like that where you will get involved. Especially if you only have one, then you kind of know the case. So we'll have to talk about that as a policy group.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
excellent. So was there any more, Ms. Stokowski?
Just one administration type of question. Is there a way, because this one has an administrative regulation, and I know in the past when people wanted to go see policies, when they saw the policy book, they could also see the regulations. When we've gone online, we've broken that link. So is there any way maybe we could add a link at the bottom of policies that have regulations that say to see the regulation, administrative regulation, click here? Or we could have our website say, here's the policy, and be paired with a link to the regulation.
As far as I know, the whole document goes up there, but that'll have to be that's something that has to go to the people in charge of the policy, because in the past, that's the people in charge of posting it on the website. Because I know in the past it's all been posted as one document. Although you might have had to click the button for the PDF instead of trying to read, instead of reading what's actually printed on the screen.
Yeah, because I was, I'm curious because the Board of Finance didn't seem to know that there was a regulation associated with some work we had done on the non-lapsing account. And I can't help but wonder if they had known about that regulation, if the outcome of their decision may have been different. So whatever information we can make available to those looking at our policies, I think could only help us.
Well, yeah, as I said, that may very well be a case where they didn't see it because they had to they just read what was online instead of actually downloading the full PDF. But that'll have to be a separate conversation. I guess Dr. Rodrigue maybe has to talk to whoever I don't know, is Joanne in charge of, whoever's in charge of posting them?
Well, Sarah helps out with that, so
yeah,
I'll have to look at what it looks like and how we can make that more user friendly and easier to access.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's actually, I would be surprised if Board of Finance members were able to find our policies, frankly. I mean, there are a lot of policies, and unless you know where to look for them.
They were aware of the 2 policies for the non-lapsing account. They just were not aware of the regulation.
Okay.
Yeah, and the search function, unfortunately, is not great, which doesn't help things at all.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments on this policy? All right. So Mr. Cruson will take those back, and now we can discuss our next policy.
Yep, 5145.111, probation, police, and courts. And this was one that also came from CABE. For the most part, I mean, we didn't really have any changes. We liked it the way it was, I believe. I can't remember if Mr. Pompano, did you make suggestions or recommendations, changes on this?
No, we left it as it was written by CABE.
Okay, yeah, that's what my notes said too. But you did review it, and I'm assuming Lieutenant Robinson was also involved in looking that over with you?
Yes.
So we left it as CABE gave it to us, but it was reviewed by everyone and read over.
All right, so questions or comments on this policy? No. Okay. No revisions to CABE's policy from the policy committee, and maybe not even from the Board of Ed. All right.
I guess not.
So, Ms. Zukowski, you'll be supplying the policy committee with some suggestions in writing. And,
Yes, and it's a Word doc, so thank you. That makes it a lot easier.
okay. Oh, the policy is a Word. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cruson. And we will move on to our discussion and possible action on middle school, high school graduation programs.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Coos. So Tom and Dr. Longabuco met with me regarding the end of year activities, including both the middle school moving up and the high school graduation ceremony. And now that the guidelines are out from the state, which officially are actually set to begin on March 19th, and they've clearly outlined a variety of different events that can take place and the parameters around those events, including graduation, which they say now is limited to the number that can be accommodated safely by location with masks and social distancing required. And there is a 50% capacity in if you're using an outdoor event like a stadium. And so with that being said, both the middle school and the high school have planned for ceremonies that we're hoping are more typical of getting close to more typical of a true commencement and moving up, while still remaining in compliance with the state guidelines. I shared with you via a Google Doc earlier today the details, but I will open it up so that Kim and Tom get to speak on some of those details. And that does include prom and field activities. We put that in the document as well. But Kim, do you want to start?
Sure, thank you. We're actually really excited to bring graduation back to Newtown High School and in the stadium. Many of you know that it did occur there for quite a while, and there's something special for seniors to be graduating on campus. Maybe not in the parking lot like last year, but maybe in a little bit more of a formal situation. So with the new guidelines that Dr. Rodrigue mentioned, we are able to, even if those don't change at all between now and June, we are able to hold 2 true graduation ceremonies. We do need to do 2 sessions because it'll be about 190 students in each session. And that's not really the issue. The issue is that we feel strongly about them being able to bring 2 parents or 2 people. And having the students all together is a feasible option, but everybody would only be able to bring 1 person. And so, you know, when discussing that, if the limits don't increase, we feel like it's important for 2 people to be able to be there in person. And so we did, Bob Gerbert came over and helped us out with what the capacity of a stadium is, because we didn't really have a good idea on what the capacity of the stadium or the bleachers were. And so he was very helpful. And what we did is we came out with the count that the bleachers, the main set of bleachers on our side hold at half capacity, 384 people. We then anticipate using about 150 to 175 chairs on the track unrelated to students and faculty, which puts us at a place where we will have easily 2 per graduate in the 2 multiple sessions. So it'll be about 190 students in each session. What we're proposing is a Friday 5 p.m. on Friday, June 11th, and a Saturday, June 12th, 2 p.m. ceremony. And we would break it down kind of by cohort, which is how they started their senior year in A through K and L through Z, which also matches with our 2 assistant principals. It does give us a little bit of flexibility. As many of you know, the stadium, there are some outside places outside of the fence and in other locations that give us a little bit more space. We're also optimistic that we may be able to fit more than 150 chairs, but until we can really go out and kind of do accurate folding chair measurements, this is the number that we are sticking with for the moment. And these will be true graduation ceremonies. So we will have student speakers at both sessions, faculty speakers at both sessions, of course, members of the Board of Education and Dr. Rodrigue, myself, and members of the Newtown High School staff to be able to come to both locations. So we anticipate them being about an hour, using the lower parking lot for student staging and including our music department so we can have distance singers and the band involved. So we do anticipate this looking a lot more traditional than last year's. While not all together in one place, definitely 2 full ceremonies with a processional and a recessional, and students receiving their diploma as they cross the stage with their name heard. So we felt like that was an important part, and based on the feedback we got last year, even from the parking lot graduation, that was an important part for the students and for their families. So we do have some tentative rain plans, as anything outdoors is necessary. And so if there is rain on Friday, we will double up on the sessions on Saturday. And if we know Saturday looks like a wash to begin with, we have space for either 2 sessions on Friday or a session on Sunday. Our plan and kind of the reason why we're putting this forward a little earlier than we typically do is that we do need to rent the stage. And as many places will start doing outdoor graduation plans, those are going quickly, and we would like to make sure that we can reserve it for the dates that we are hoping for. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer those about our proposed graduation plans.
I'm not seeing, oh, Mr. Delia.
I just want to thank you and Dr. Longabuco and Mr. Einhorn and everyone for taking the time to think this through and put this together. And I think it's an exceptional idea, and the children deserve this. I'm sorry, the young adults deserve it. They've been through a lot, and I'm in full support of this. I think it's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Cruson.
First off, I really like the idea for the senior prom. I think that's a neat idea, actually. Hopefully the students also appreciate it, but I like the theme and the idea of doing it in the football field. I think that's a unique experience. And I'm also happy with it being back in the stadium, because back in my day, I remember it being in the stadium. But I'm glad, like you said, there's something special about being able to graduate right there on campus. So I'm glad that, one, we can have a ceremony of some sort, even if it's split into 2, and 2, being able to do it right there on campus.
Thank you. I can touch on the prom quickly, just to sort of update you. I know Jillian gave a little bit of an update. We do send Friday reports to all the seniors every Friday, so they get an update on where we are with this planning. And actually, kudos to the senior class. They voted on the theme. Night Under the Stars, we did tell them of the location, and then they voted on the theme, which makes perfect sense. And so we are in the process of renting tents and a dance floor and lots of lighting and decorations and food trucks that we're excited to kind of make that a really fun experience for our seniors. And they're excited about the plans, and actually the planning has been kind of fun for us. And so we hope for good weather on Friday, June 4th, but we've reserved everything early enough. I think we're a little bit ahead of many districts as far as the planning process. And I can tell you that just from the vendors we've spoken to, there's not a lot of dates left. And so these things are kind of turning over quickly, and we have secured everything we need to make that a really special night for our seniors.
All right. And I think, yeah, Mr. Delia.
Has this been shared out, or is this the first everyone, like the public, is hearing about it? Is this, so this is the first?
Well, so the seniors know about the graduation plans. That was shared with seniors and with parents, all with obviously tentative disclaimers about, if trends change or rules and parameters change, but that information has all been out to students and families. The graduation piece has not, because we're sharing with you first the date and the tentative plans for those.
So will you share it out with the families soon? Because I'm sure we're going to get a lot of questions now.
The plan is to share tomorrow if it goes through well here tonight.
Thank you.
Sure.
So if there no more questions on the high school plans, we can talk about the middle school moving up ceremony. Mr. Einhorn, do you have?
Absolutely. Good evening, everybody. We're also very thrilled about having a chance to, to return to some level of normal to celebrate our kids. They've worked really, really hard, and we want that opportunity to send them off in style. So similar to the high school, we're going to be breaking up moving up. We typically have done 2 clusters at a time. We feel with the social distancing and having the opportunity, we're going to go with 1 cluster at a time. So on Wednesday, June 9th, and on Thursday, June 10th, we're going to do 2 programs on both of those days. So we'll have a program at 4 and then another one at 6. And so this way we'll get to celebrate a cluster at a time. We're looking to use part of our back area close to where the cafeteria is, so we can set up a stage, a tent, and then have area in the parking lot for socially distanced chairs to be set up for not only our kids, but again, 2 parents or 2 family members that can come and join in that. We'll also be obviously videotaping that to be able to be shared with family members that won't be able to be present. And so we're really thrilled about the opportunity, again, to kind of celebrate kids as we've done in the past. Last year, as you may know, we had more of a drive-through or drive-up moving up ceremony. And while that was great, we were looking to kind of get back to more of a formalized program. So we're thrilled about having that opportunity. And as Dr. Longabuco said, is that we do have a rain date of Monday, June 14th. So obviously we've been coordinating that with both the middle school and the high school, not to have it on any of the same days, so that this way family members that have middle schoolers and high schoolers won't have to choose between what program they go to. So we're thrilled about that. And then we're also looking to try to do some field days. So this way we give our students an opportunity. Years past, we've done things at NYA, but obviously with social distancing, we're going to have to modify that a bit, but we still want to have some way of, again, celebrating not only our 8th graders with moving up, but also our 7th graders, because they've equally has worked hard this school year. So happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Do you have any board member questions? Yeah, Mr. D'Elia.
Yes, first of all, thank you again, Mr. Einhorn, for putting that together. I think that's wonderful. How are you going to do field days? I'm just curious, because that seems like a tough one with social distancing. Would you mind elaborating on that just a little for me?
Absolutely. So as you can imagine, as we had a little bit of taste of warmer weather last week, our PE classes were able to get outside. And for those of you that don't know, we have a large number of fields in the back of our middle school. So we have plenty of space. So the field days would have to be modified to just do a cluster at a time, so that this way we break it up over a course of a week. And we're obviously, if this plan goes ahead, we always partner with our PTA that helps us with food and different things and organization of games. But again, all the things that we would do, we would kind of lean toward what our PE department has done already by keeping kids separated and having fun and doing more interactive games that still maintain that level of social distancing.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions or comments? It occurs to me that we
I need to make a motion, right?
Yeah.
I move that the Board of Education approve the middle school and high school graduation programs.
Second.
All right, so Mr. D'Elia makes the motion, Mr. Poussin seconds the motion. Are there any other questions or comments? Mr. D'Elia?
I just want to speak to my motion. I'm in full support of this motion, and I want to thank Dr. Longabuco, Mr. Einhorn, and all their staff and all the people that have spent the hours getting this together. I think this is a wonderful way to end the year.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, I will just say that I think Mr. D'Elia did ask a, I don't know, question in that this will come out to the public tomorrow, and as we know, board members don't always, and you might not have thought of all the questions and things that come up. So I would, if there are things that need to be changed, I guess I would ask that you just come back and let us know what's going on, because I know that this is all new and it does need a significant amount of planning. And I, like Mr. Delia, appreciate the amount of planning that you've already put into it. So thank you. All right. Any other questions, comments? All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Well, Ms. Clerk, I didn't see you here. You could have.
Sorry, could I just ask one question about the?
Go ahead.
Or I guess it could pertain to middle school too. Will the events be live streamed?
Good question, Jillian. Yes, they will. I can only speak for the high school. Ours will be live streamed. As you know, we have live streaming equipment out on the stadium from our athletic events. And we also purchased equipment for graduation last year that we have the ability to use. So we actually have a company coming out to train some of our staff so that we can run a trial run on that. So families at home, outside of the 2 people that you can bring, can be watching live in real time as well.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
While the middle school is not as fortunate as the high school to have all the equipment, we're still looking to see if we could possibly do something live, but at the very least, it will be recorded that folks can share that out with family members right after the event.
And if you need hints on how to live stream from a Zoom meeting, don't ask me. No, that's a great question. Thank you, Ms. Claire, for bringing that to our attention. So that wraps up that conversation. Thank you, Dr. Longabuco, Mr. Einhorn, and Mr. Pompano. Thank you for sticking with us for our late meeting discussions this evening. So thank you. And that will bring us to our discussion on the cyber liability insurance.
I move that the Board of Education approve purchasing cyber liability insurance through Corvus.
Second.
All right, so Mr. Delia makes the motion, Mr. Kusan seconds the motion, and then I think we'll turn it. I know this was discussed in the CFF meeting, but shall I turn it over to Ms. Vadas to give us the details on it? Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Koo. I knew there were some questions during that meeting also. So I just want to give you a little brief history, a little background on the current policy that we have with CIRMA. So a number of years ago, when the need for cyber coverage began, CIRMA created more or less a blanket policy for its members, and it included this as a courtesy rather than a cost. So we've all pretty much had this blanket coverage for the past 5 or 6 years. Since that time, as you know, the cyber claims have been soaring, becoming a large liability for CIRMA, where the costs have exceeded the premiums collected. And as a result, beginning June 30th, they will no longer be offering this policy to any towns or cities that they previously covered, and we all have to find another carrier. So a lot of us, actually, we were all in the same boat. So over the past few months, our rep has been soliciting quotes for both the town and the Board of Ed. We ended up with 2 companies that would insure both of us under the condition that we had separate policies. And this is because we have very different protocols and procedures in place. And other than that, we're definitely advised to act now on this policy for a number of reasons. So first of all, the quotes are only good for 30 days. And this is becoming a very competitive and unpredictable market. If we wait until July, we fear that the demand will outweigh the supply, and this will only drive the premiums further upwards. So I do feel it's important to act on this quickly. If we do not, this will leave a significant gap in our coverage, which could result in large uncovered claims. So you have the policy, or you have the quote in your packet. They did offer some 2 other levels of coverage, but because of our risk category, we felt that the $1 million in cost with a $10,000 deductible would suffice. They also offered a $2 million liability with a $19,000 deductible. I'm sorry, that was $10,000 for $30,000. And the 3 million policy, 3 million in liability costs with a $10,000 deductible is 35,000. So, you know, and unfortunately this wasn't budgeted obviously this year or next year. So that's going to create a little bit of a gap in next year's budget. This did come up in August or September, but there was a lot of discussions or questionnaires to be filled out. It took some time to solicit quotes. And at the time, I remember Mr. Vinkowski's thinking it would be about $2,000 or $3,000, but this is the outcome. This is what it is now. You know, and I have checked with other business managers, and everybody's paying anywhere from $9,000 to $35,000 for this policy. So that's where we're at. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions? Yeah, Mr. Cruson?
What's the actual term for this policy? Because it looks like, according to this, it will have started in November and runs out in November.
Oh, no, it's March. I'm not sure where you're seeing that, but it would start immediately as soon as it's approved.
So it's
approved.
So it's going to run March to March and not our normal budget year.
Exactly. Yeah, because if we wait, then we're you know, caught in the supply and demand issue. I don't think we should wait until July. It is up to you as a board, but I just fear that the premiums will be driven upward. You know, we've been advised to act now. So I'm taking the advice of our rep, who's been our rep for over 30 years.
Okay. Yeah, it seems weird. And I'm seeing the date. It's on the quote document that we were sent in our packet, which seemed odd since it was dated February 18th that they would say it starts November 18th, but that's beside the point. But it seems odd that it's going to run off sync with our entire financial year. But
yeah,
okay.
I mean, we have some contracts that are like that. It's just the nature of the beast right now.
Yes, Ms. Zukowski?
I know these are usually 12 months, but you know, could we could we fix that maybe next year where we have a policy that's a few months longer and then get it back to July to July?
Yeah, that would be a great thing if we could do that. I'm not sure it's possible, only because, you know, it has to go through underwriting. It's an insurance policy, and I could ask the question, but I don't think it would be possible. Would be nice.
Do we have other contracts with other vendors that don't run July, June, July?
Yeah, we definitely do. I can't think of them off the top of my head. I think there might be a couple in curriculum, actually. I don't know. I don't remember exactly who they are, but
I'm imagining like garbage collection or something, you know, things that aren't necessarily on the same fiscal year that we are on. But
yeah, it happens.
Any other questions or comments? Yeah, Mr. D'Elia.
Was this budgeted for, and is this budgeted for next year's budget?
Unfortunately, no, because the quotes came in so late. We didn't anticipate such a high cost either, so it was not budgeted for next year, and certainly not in this year's budget because it was covered under the current LAP policy.
So that'll.
And I did include it in our financial statements.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Zukowski.
So we could conceivably stay with our current policy through the end of June. So we've got a 25% of that policy left. And if it's 20,000, that would be $5,000 that we would be potentially saving. It would be a gamble, but you know, in terms of going to the end of the year, we're effectively losing $5,000 worth of value. The other alternative is to say, okay, so we know it's going to be larger, but it might only be larger by 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000, but not necessarily by 25%. Is that a reasonable line of reasoning?
Well, that's not the information that our rep is giving us right now. You know, he's suggesting to act now because he does feel that the market will be saturated become, you know, in July, and the premiums will just go up. It's a volatile market right now. This is what I'm hearing. So, and other districts are, you know, I think most of them are applying for this now, and they don't have it budgeted, or they had not had it forecasted. It's just an unfortunate thing, and we didn't anticipate the cost to be this high. So my fear is that they'll go up.
So there's no Kerma would, if we're not using the policy through the end of the year, is there a rebate that we get for not using it?
No, there's not. Again, this was set up as almost like a blanket policy. They kind of gave it to us as a courtesy more than a cost. You know, I did press him to put a value on it, and he, you know, couldn't even, he said maybe $2,000. That doesn't mean it was refundable. It meant he was trying to put a value on the policy, but there's, you know, they added it as a courtesy. And the town is in the same situation also. And they recently just signed on to accept their policy maybe last week or so.
So did this go through Rick Spryer for the, if the town is doing?
No, so we have a rep, Arnie Finaldi. I'm not sure if you've heard of him. He's been in place for over 30 years, and you know, he alluded us to this situation probably back in August, September. You know, before Mr. Benkowski left, he even told us about it. So they've just been working on these quotes for a while. There was a lot of back and forth with questionnaires. They had to gather a lot of information, send it to underwriting. We had a few companies decline to give us coverage, but we did have two that accepted us, and Corvus was the number one choice.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, Mr. D'Elia.
I'm just trying to understand that we have a rep that got two quotes, and we're taking the lower of the two quotes, Ms. Foss?
That's basically it. Like I said, a couple of companies, I believe 4 or 5. So he obtained probably about 6 quotes. I didn't see all of them because 4 of them were declined.
Okay.
So, you know, just based on, I'm not sure if it was, you know, what was happening at the town level.
And in your opinion, this is the best decision. You're recommending this.
I'm recommending it because if we don't do it, you know, we could be vulnerable for, you know, upwards in $1 million worth of costs. I mean, you've heard about the ransomware attacks that have been happening, and Kerma's actually paid claims somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000 for those attacks. So I just don't want us to be exposed to that type of liability.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments before we vote? Sensing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. So that passes unanimously. Thank you. And that brings us to our communications subcommittee newsletter. So I'll take a motion on that.
Sorry, a lot of motions. I move that the Board of Education approve the Communications Subcommittee newsletter.
Second.
All right, so Mr. D'Elia makes the motion. Mr. Cruson seconds the motion. Were there any questions or comments from board members?
Well, I know you had one. And you have a captive audience here to give the answer.
I do have one. So I
I tried to send this earlier to you, Miss Vadas. I copied you on the email. Let me see if I can pull it up. So it's essentially the last page. It looks like maybe two of the numbers have been transposed.
It's in the section at the end talking about the Board of Finance reduction. And you said that where it says, in addition, the board has recommended that existing town funds be used to defray the costs associated with technology equipment. We had written by 29,941, and you thought that it was 29,491.
Right.
Yeah, I have in my notes 29,491. Bringing the total to 349,491 because they took 320 from, well, they didn't take it, but they reduced 320 from the building and site. That's what I have in my notes. You know, to be absolutely sure, I'd have to go back to the minutes.
Oh, shoot.
I think Ms. Zukowski wants to respond. She's the one that wrote the article, so.
Ms. Zukowski?
Yeah, I think that all they did was reduce the technology budget that we had given them down to $410,000. So if we just go back and look at what we had given them and then just subtract down to 410, we'll be able to, if it needs to be fixed, we can tell that way.
Yep, 29,491. Such a small number, but yep.
Okay, it's been updated.
29,491. Confirmed.
Okay, there we go. I was going to say, we could always give you the ability to make minor edits as needed.
Well, I've already edited the actual copy of the newsletter, so I don't know if we need to adjust our motion.
I don't know. I guess. Ms. Zukowski, are you? You're not. Yeah.
I move to amend the motion to include the edit that was just discussed.
Second.
Thank you. That works. So Ms. Zukowski makes a motion to make the edit on the last page and the number, whatever it is. And Mr. Kusan seconds it. And are there any other comments or questions on that specific amendment? All right, so all those in favor of making that number change? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. All right, so that passes unanimously. And then are there any other questions on the newsletter or comments on the newsletter? None. So,
Nope.
Mr. Delia, did you have or are you voting?
I want to thank everyone for their efforts. It's a wonderful newsletter, and I just wanted to say that. Thank you for your efforts. It's very well done.
And likewise, I will echo that and say that it is an impressive newsletter. Thank you for putting in all that work. And it's under a timeline because we have a budget moving through. So thank you for doing all that. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. So that passes unanimously. And that brings us to our second public participation. And if there's anybody who would like to unmute themselves and address the board at this time, just ask that you keep your comments under 3 minutes. And I'm not seeing anybody, hearing anybody for public comment. You can unmute using *6. All right, sensing no public comment, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Mr. Crusoe makes the motion and Mr. Voros seconds it almost before it's even made. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Have a very good evening.
Good night, everyone.
Take care.